from all over Canada usually. Would love to know. Just throw it in the chat. Let us know where you're from. Hello, Manu. Hello, back. Yes, my friend Manu Joshi is with us this evening. My neighbor out of Montreal as well. Hello. Just wondering if you can still get a, since I have joined Monday's training. Dad Key, if you came on Monday's training and you qualified for your CE credit, then you will definitely get your CE credit. But, unfortunately, the regulators won't let you count the same presentation twice for 2 CE credits. But we'd love to have you here. If you felt that this session brought value to you on Monday, there's a lot of information. Adam shared a lot of great stuff with you. And it's would definitely be a good idea for you to stick around as well. Just listen to it and take more notes and fill in some of the blanks that you might have missed on Monday. All right. So hope you stick around. Very welcome. Very welcome. We have somebody from the Vaughan office. Okay, let me guess. That's near Toronto. Everything's near Toronto. I don't know. All right. I don't know exactly where that is, but I do know it's in Ontario. Anybody here from the Maritimes? Do we have anybody from the Maritimes on this session? Anybody from out west, like west of Ontario? We often have people that come in as well from the west. These webinars, by the way, are organized by the Eastern sales team. Okay, because we have 2 sales team at Avari that support WFG. I'm part of the Eastern team led by Ben Wong. And these webinars that we have on a weekly basis is organized by the East team. And we do send out, thousands of invites to advisors from all over Eastern Canada. But sometimes we get people in from the West too as well. They're more than welcome. Ambler office in Mississauga. That I know is very near Toronto. Okay, good stuff. Anybody help a family this week? Put it in the chat. If you helped a family this week, put in the chat, yes, I did. Yes, I did. If you plan on helping a family over the weekend, put in, yes, I will. How's that? All right. Brenda and Malik says, yes, I will. Pusha says, I did, I will. She's done it all. That's perfect. And then Rupika says, yes, I will. Fantastic. That means you've got some appointments and you're lining up to help some families. And Manu says, yes, on the weekend. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Manu. Bayoni says, yes, I did and I will. That's great. And I'm sure somewhere in there, there's some Avari solutions that were put in place. I'm sure. Absolutely. I see Bayonli saying yes. All right. 2 CE credits for Bayonli. No, I'm kidding. I can't do that. You know what, folks? It doesn't matter if it's Avari or anybody else. The fact is, we're helping families and you're motivating them to take important decisions that otherwise would not have been done without your help. So congratulations to all those people that helped and to all those people that will help over the weekend, all right? Good stuff. Hey, folks, it's 7:03. Time to get going. All right, I'm just going to turn down the music here. Okay, good stuff. So let's get going. We have a great session lined up for you this evening on this Thursday evening on compliance, okay? But of course, before we actually get into the subject at hand of running a compliant business, and I'll be formally introducing our special guest, Mr. Adam Kaluza, in a few minutes, but we do want to get a couple of housekeeping items out of the way. Of course, speaking of CE credits, to get a CE credit, there's a few requirements. Obviously, you need to attend the whole session, and you have to have registered with the correct information. We want to make sure we get your CE certificate to you. So in order to do that, you need to register with the correct information. And of course, I know for a fact there's some people here in the session that are from Quebec, okay? And typically with the new legislation here in Quebec to get a CE credit, through a webinar. You also have to do like a quiz after the webinar in the next coming days. But guess what? I've got a surprise. Yes, Brenda's from Montreal. So Brenda will probably know what I'm talking about. So usually in Quebec now, with the new legislation that's been happening for the last year and a half approximately, you need to do a quiz after the webinar to get your C credit. But guess what, folks? This one doesn't require one. Okay, it's an older presentation, and until we renew it in the upcoming months, we don't need another. We don't need the quiz. Okay, so for tonight, exceptionally, there is no quiz. How do I get my C certificate? I get this question all the time, which is why we put it in the presentation here. Once you qualify for a certificate, you can actually go into avari.ca under For My Business, My Live Sales Training History, and all your C certificates are stored there for the last 3 years, okay? Which is fantastic, because if ever you get audited and you're looking for your C certificates, this is where you're going to find them. However, please note, folks, that for the people in Quebec, or anybody in the room for this matter, some of you may be living somewhere else in Canada but are licensed in Quebec, so you still need to get your C credits for the province of Quebec. So for those certificates, okay, those CE credit certificates, we actually email them to you, okay? It will not be online. So, especially in Quebec now, the 2-year period is finishing in a few weeks. All right. So you better make sure you have all your CE certificates at hand and stored somewhere safe in your computer. And if you're missing any from Avari, just reach out to me and we'll give you a hand. Okay. All right. Next, we always like to show the team card. Why? One good reason. We're good looking folks. This is a good time for you to take a picture of us. No, I'm kidding. This is not why we have this. We want to make sure that you have all of our contact information. This is the sales team that is, dedicated to WFG. We only work with WFG. Although Avari does business with many, many MGAs across Canada, WFG is important enough to us that we have a dedicated sales team, and this, folks, is the team that looks after Eastern Canada. So it's led by Mr. Benedict Wong himself, and then there are 3 sales directors, including myself and YL and Nicole, and then we have some incredible associate sales directors whom many of you know, I'm sure. We have Mr. Maxime Bedard and Don and Mark. Okay, so if you don't have our contact information, now's the time to take it. If you don't know who's actually your assigned sales team members, just call anybody. We'll put you in contact with the right folks. Okay? Good. So that being said, a couple of very quick items I want to get out of the way. One is Bill 96. For anybody who sells a policy to a Quebec resident, this bill has been in effect for several months now. And what this means is, this bill was actually put in place to strengthen the French language here in Quebec, which by the most part, doesn't have a huge impact on us. But in our business, it does change a little bit of how we manage the administration side of it. Okay. So what this means in a nutshell, if you sell a policy to somebody in Quebec in French, right? Somebody fills in a French application, they get a French contract, nothing changes. It's the same. If somebody applies for insurance in Quebec in English, well, when the policy gets issued, it's going to be issued in both languages. You're going to have a choice to deliver the English or the French. That's it. That's what changes. You have an obligation to offer the French contract to the client. And of course, if they refuse and prefer English, then you can go ahead and just deliver the English contract. Okay. So at minimum, you need to offer it to the client. You need to open the contract and online. And if they don't want it, fine, close it, deliver the English. It's as simple as that. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is licensing. Licensing is very important as well. And at Avari, we're sort of reinforcing some rules that have been put in place. For Avari, if you want to sell some insurance to an individual who lives in a province other than where you live, okay, then you need to make sure you're licensed in that province. So what does that mean? If I've got a brother, if I'm in Quebec here, and I've got a brother that's, visiting me from, Alberta, even though he comes to visit me here in Montreal, and I want to sell him some insurance, and he's here physically, in Montreal to buy it, that's fine. But I would still need to be licensed in Alberta, okay? Because it's very important to be licensed where your client lives, so that you can do the proper servicing of it. Okay, so that's what the thought process is behind that. Okay, so the last thing I want to give everybody a reminder of is Everest. Everybody knows about Everest, right? Everest, unbelievable, estate planning tools that are made available to many, many Ivari clients. So just as a quick reminder, this service is not available to anybody who lives within 180 kilometers of Thunder Bay. Okay, why is that? It's you're probably saying why 180 kilometers and why Thunder Bay? Well, the answer to that is simple. There's a funeral home in Thunder Bay called Everest, and there is absolutely no link between Everest, the services we offer, and that funeral home. Okay, Everest, the services that we offer, is completely independent of any funeral home. And so because of the name that's similar, there's a little bit of a litigation going on. So we're not allowing clients in the Thunder Bay area to use or get access to Everest. Okay, that's unfortunate, but that will get fixed eventually, I'm hoping. All right, so the next couple of housekeeping items is the new advisor training program. So this is for new advisors, less than 2 years in the business. So if you yourself are a new advisor, or perhaps you've recruited some new individuals into your team recently, okay, that just got licensed, then this is for them. We've put together a program which we call Fast Track, and it's to put individuals on a fast track to offering an Ivari solution. So it's a whole series of sessions, from learning product and processes and meeting the sales team and getting, an orientation of all of our tools and so forth, and learning how to use our software and the whole kit and caboodle. Okay, so it's just a series of sessions that we've put together for brand new advisors. If you're interested, reach out to anybody in the sales team, whether you're getting information for yourself or some members of your own team, just reach out to us and we'll give you more information. Okay. And for now, I can give you some dates. Okay. If this is something that interests you, you can go ahead and take a picture of this. These are some of the upcoming dates that we've already got planned. We had a session 2 days ago, but we've got a couple more coming. Well, no, it looks like based on this, there's one more left in the month of November, and of course, we're going to have more in December. Okay? Now, I'm going to just zip right along here. Okay? I'm going to skip all this. I want to get to the best part of today's session. Okay? I want to take a minute to introduce the star of the show today. All right. We have my colleague, Mr. Adam Kaluza, and Adam will be talking about compliance and how to run a compliant business. And let me tell you, folks, a little bit about Adam. Adam's been in the industry for a long time. And what's really particular about Adam's situation, which is pretty rare, is that not only has he worked in the compliance department over the years, but he was also an advisor. Okay, so it's very rare that you see that a person who's has the experience of an advisor and being a part of a compliance department. And so today his role is actually in between the two. He's actually part of the sales team, okay, and he's like a liaison between the sales team and the compliance department, and he works very closely with us to ensure that we give, the education, the support, and so forth that the field needs. Okay, and so thank you, Adam, for being with us. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to share your insights and experience and so forth. And we will, folks. If you have any questions, go ahead, throw them in the chat. And I know that Adam's going to take some time. Make sure there's some time at the end to answer a few questions. All right. Thank you, Adam, once again, and it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Daniel. As always, great introduction. So in the spirit of time, let's kick it off. I'm just going to quickly share my screen over here. All right, Daniel, as usual, thumbs up. Good, sharing. Awesome, buddy. All right, everyone. Again, I want to say thank you all for joining us this evening, whether you're here just for some C credits or you want to learn some compliance stuff, works for me. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm really hoping that the one thing that you learn from this presentation by the end of it is you'll be able to look at your business and tell honestly to yourself, forget Daniel, forget myself, forget your office. Tell yourself, be like, hey, if I were to be audited by the regulators, or if a client were to file a complaint, am I prepared? Am I going to be all right? So I'm hoping after this, you'll be able to answer this question regarding your own business. All right, so let's jump right into it. Yeah, all the good stuff. Here's what I'll talk about. Don't worry about that. We'll get through all of it. All right, first slide. So if you're going to remember one thing and one thing only from this presentation, hopefully you'll remember more, but if you do just one thing, this slide will be it. If I was going to give you my number one tip for any advisor, and I'm not just talking about, to prepare yourself for an audit or anything. One tip that I would give any advisor to be a good advisor is to document everything. And I mean everything. And I'll tell you actually what to document. But here's the reason why I say it. Right now, well, not right now, if you were ever to be audited by, for example, Levari, or by your NGA, by WFG, or by your provincial regulator, whichever province you're. Let's say you're Ontario, it could be FSRA, right? Or you're Alberta, it could be AIC. Or just a client file a complaint, right? The most important piece that you can have to protect yourself as an advisor is proper documentation, okay? I want you to think about it this way. There's two examples I always use. One is if I went on vacation to Spain last month and I didn't post it on my Instagram, and my friends asked me, hey, Adam, what'd you do last month? And I said, I went to Spain. They'll be like, no, you didn't, because there's no proof. There's no posts anywhere, right? Very similar thing is when I went to school, my math teacher, whenever she would give me a math question, she would always say, Adam, for full marks, I want you to show your work, right? And this is exact same principle that I want you to keep in mind when you're dealing with your clients. When a client comes to you, it's like a question. They come to you with a question. They're like, hey, listen, I think I need some life insurance. Can you help me out? So you do all this work, and in the end, you recommend you sell a product. You should have enough and adequate documentation that will show that journey from the beginning when you met that client all the way to the end whenever you sold them the policy, and going on, of course, because your relationship does not end at that point. So remember, documentation is one of the most important aspects, really, of having a compliant business as an advisor. So I also want to mention a little bit about CLHIA. What is that? So Canadian Life and Health Insurance Association. It's a voluntary trade organization representing life insurance and health insurance providers in Canada. So basically, the reason why I mention it is because all the documents that I will be talking about, they come from CLHIA guidelines, which are based on rules and laws. Now, there is very slight variations between certain provinces. So I try to make this presentation as broad as possible. But I'll tell you right now, if you are somewhere in Canada, if you are life licensed and you're saying life insurance products, you have to follow CLHA guidelines. Regardless whose product you sell, Levari, IA, any carrier, same rules apply. You work for WFG, any other MGA, same rules apply. You're licensed in Ontario versus licensed in Alberta, slight variations, but most of the documentation, same rules apply to everything, all right? So if you have any questions later, like Daniel said, put them in the chat. I'll try to answer those. Okay. Next thing I quickly want to mention as well is this rule, this guideline called G8, all right? So this is kind of like almost an explanation. So basically, if you ever do get an email from Evari, let's say, for example, and they say, hey, congratulations, you've been selected for our advisor practice review. Or your own office, WFG sends you an email saying, hey, we're going to audit your client files. I don't want you to take it personal and think, oh no, I did something. They're picking on me. They're choosing me. They're not. It's literally guideline G8, which tells all the carriers and all the offices they are required to audit a certain amount of advisors every year or every often. So don't feel like I said, don't feel like you're being picked on. Actually, if anything, I'll tell you right now, if you get chosen for an audit from Ivari, you should actually be kind of happy about it, because we will go with you through all your files and we'll make sure that your business is compliant. And if it's not, we'll tell you exactly what is wrong and how you can fix those changes and address those gaps. And in the end, if there's some issues, you'll get a very nice report that will say everything. And I'll tell you right now, if you were to be audited by a regulator, they're not gonna be so nice. All right. You can, if you ever feel like you want to get scared, go to the FISRA.ca webpage and look at current investigations they have. And you can see advisors are getting slapped like with serious fines. I'm talking like $5,000, $10,000, license suspension, 6 months, or even total license loss. These days, regulators, they are not playing anymore and they're looking closely at everyone. Okay. So make sure that you listen to what I'm telling you. Make sure that your business is protected, all right? Because the last thing I want for any of you to happen is get audited and then they look at your files and they're like, well, you're missing all this stuff, right? So let's try to avoid that, because this is not, this is not a race. This is a long distance running, right? We want to be in this business for as long as possible. All right. So couple of years ago, when FISRA, which is the Ontario regulators, they did a desk audit of a certain amount of advisors. And the two main issues that they found with these advisors is this. Number one, conflict of interest. And number two, product customer suitability. All right. When I read those, first I was like, conflict of interest. I'm like, all right. I mean, I can kind of see it, right? Because I know there's a lot of advisors do this, start with this as part-time job. So let's say, you're working as a nurse in a hospital as your full-time job, and this is a part-time job. You're in a hospital looking at your client file at the chart, and you're like, it looks like you could use some life insurance. Yeah, that's a serious conflict of interest, right? But that's not it. That was not the problem. And the second issue, product customer suitability, I figure, hey, you know what? Advisor possibly sold the wrong product to the client. Again, I was wrong. Both of those issues, conflict of interest and product customer suitability, are lack of advisor documentation. I'm serious. Conflict of interest, advisor disclosure was missing. Product customer suitability, advisor did not have sufficient documentation that when a regulator asked him, hey, Adam, why did you sell Mr. Smith this policy versus this other policy? This advisor, Mr. Adam, was not able to provide enough documentation that showed the regulator why was this product sold. And I'll tell you which documents those are as well. So going back to the first slide, like I told you, the most important thing that you can do as an advisor to protect yourself and your business is have proper documentation, okay? What I'm saying is your file, your client file should be, as of right now, done in such a way that if I were to walk into your office, go into your filing cabinet and pick a random client file, I shouldn't have to talk to you. I shouldn't have to talk to the client, but there should be enough adequate information in there that tells me that you've provided the disclosure to the client, you've done all the fact finding, the needs analysis, provided a reason why letter, and you have your client discussion document. It's all in there, and it should tell me when did you meet the client, what did you talk about, and what did you sell them in the end, and why did you sell them that particular product. All right, that is a good documentation. So let's go through those documents. For the conflict of interest, all right, I'll tell you the document in a second, but I just want you all to remember this. 3 main tips that will help you dealing with any clients, okay? When it comes to conflict of interest and actually product client suitability as well. Number 1, the interest of the consumer must be placed ahead of that of the advisor. All right. So as Daniel told you, like before, I used to be an advisor back in the day myself as well. So I'll be honest with you. Whenever I had a client that came in, I knew right away, if I sell him this policy, this is what I'm getting paid. If I sell him that policy, this is what I'm getting paid. I couldn't help it. It was just human nature, right? I mean, that's it's what it is, right? But in the end, that should not affect the choice of the product that you sold your client in any shape, way, or form. And what I mean by that is, even if Mr. Elon Musk came to you and he was like, I want to buy the most expensive policy from you, and you do your due diligence with your fact finding, and in the end, you're like, well, Mr. Musk, you know what? I'm not going to sell you anything because you don't need anything. You're already covered. You got 5 billion policies already. That is keeping your clients' interest ahead of your own. Okay. So if you ever have a client and you do your fact finding and you figure out they don't need anything, you tell that client that. And I guarantee you, they're going to be shocked, but they're going to get that trust with you that will make them refer you to other clients. All right. So always keep your client's interest ahead of your own as your priority. Number two, actual and potential conflicts of interest must be disclosed. That is literally, that is literally having advisor disclosure, which we'll go through in a second. And last thing, recommended product must be suitable to client needs. Again, this is you as the advisor have sufficient documentation to support your recommendation. Because think about it this way, I could choose any two random advisors from this call right now. We could go to a separate room. You could ask me some questions, and both of you could give me a different suggestion for a different coverage that I need. Because life insurance, it's not an exact science. It's not math. There's no formula for it, right? It's what questions you ask and what information you gather. So both of you could give me a different suggestion, and is one of you right and the other one is wrong? I don't know. But I'll tell you what the regulators would look at. They would ask, hey, which one of those advisors have supporting documentation to why are they recommending this product versus another one? So if one of you was like, well, I told Adam that he needs term because he told me these things and that's about it, versus the other advisor that says, hey, I told Adam to get UL because here's the facts that I've written down that he told me. Here's his age, here's his income, here's all the information, right? And those are the facts that I use to recommend this product. That, in the eyes of the regulators, is the right advisor, the one that's recommending the product that's suitable to my needs. Because not only do you have the facts to support why you recommending it, but you have it documented. So if anybody ever asks, you're able to provide that documentation, okay? So first document I want to talk about is advisor disclosure. 1 second. Sorry. So advisor disclosure, now this document, this is a regulatory required document. So what do I mean by that is you got to have it, all right? You got to have an advisor disclosure in each one of your client files. This should be literally the first document that you start your relationship with your clients. Look, there's two ways of going about with any kind of a regulatory required documents. The wrong way, actually, the super wrong way is not using them. That's just terribly wrong. But the second wrong way is the one I used to do as an advisor. I would do something like this. I would go to my client and I'd be like, hey, listen, can you sign my disclosure for me? And my clients usually, they like me because, they are my clients. They're willing to work with me, and they'd be like, yeah, no problem, Adam. What is it? And I would say something like, I don't know, my compliance department told me I need it. My manager told me I need it. So they would sign it, right? That is a completely the wrong way. I wish I knew this when I was an advisor. Maybe I'd still be an advisor. Look at the stuff that's on this disclosure. It's literally designed to help you brag about how great of a person you are and how hard it is to be an advisor that nobody else can do it. Okay? Bear with me. Look, instead of just saying, hey, sign it because I need it, why don't you go to your client and be like, hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Client, I want to work with you and I want you to work with me. But before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself and what is it that I do. And I'll do it through this document called Advisor Disclosure. Look at item number 1, license and jurisdiction. So my name is so and so. I am licensed as a life and health insurance and accident and sickness agent in these provinces. So you list all your licensing, you list all your whichever provinces you're licensed at, right? Number 2, companies that you represent. Look, I am contracted with these companies whose products I can sell. So you know I did not just pick one of them because that's it I have. I have all these choices. So I've picked the best product for you. Number 3, nature of the relationship. Look, I just sell their product. I have no hidden agenda to pick this company versus another one. Number 4 and 5, those two are kind of silly. I know I used to be like kind of weird about it too, and I know a lot of advisors are, because how the advisors compensated, and you're eligible for additional compensation, right? How many times you had a situation where your client's like, well, you just want to sell it to me because that's how you get paid. Yes, that's literally how selling works. You know, when you go to a store and you buy some bananas, the only reason that guy wants to sell you bananas is so he gets paid, right? But there's a big difference between me selling you life insurance and that guy selling you bananas. You don't like those bananas, tough luck. You're stuck with them. You don't like the life insurance I sold you? You know what? You can get rid of it. And guess what? The money that I got to pay it back. I don't get to keep it. So it is in my best interest as an advisor to only sell you the products that I know that you need and I know that you will keep. Okay? And if I do sell enough stuff, you know what? I'll get a bonus. Again, that's exactly how selling works everywhere for everyone. Number 6, that's your conflict of interest line. You tell your client right off the bat, hey, listen, as far as I know, there is no conflict of interest for us to be working together. And if there one were ever to arise, I will let you know. Number 7, customer has the right to ask for more information. So, Mr. and Mrs. Client, you can ask me anything you want regarding this policy, right? So do you see how I went through it? You know, obviously with some pauses, but it would take you like a minute, 2 minutes max. But it tells your client so much about you that you start the relationship on the proper way. Right off the bat, they will see you as the professional that you are, because you explain to them who you are, you explain to them where you're licensed and where you work, who you work with, why, excuse me, and the products that you sell. So picture yourself as a client. If you have an advisor asking you, hey, sign this form, and you ask them, what is it? And they're like, I don't know, I need it for compliance, versus one that says, hey, let me go through this form before you sign it so I explain to you what you're signing, right? Like, look, trust me, I am I don't want to say I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I take my privacy very seriously, and I like working with professionals. So if I was going to buy a computer or something and I was asking somebody about a form and they couldn't explain it to me, I'd be worried right off the bat. If you don't even know what form you're making me sign, what else do you not know about the product that you're selling, right? So make sure that go through your little disclosure, make sure you know what's on it, and make sure you start your interactions with the client with it, okay? A couple things. The format is irrelevant as long as it has these 7 key items on it. You can literally have it pink. I'm not kidding. Have it pink, and with, I don't know, lip gloss, you write it down. Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you have proof that you've given it to your client, all right? It's not even about a signature. Regulators, for this particular form, the signature is optional. What they want to be able to see is for you to provide proof that you've given it to your client. Because think about this situation. You have an elderly client, you do everything via Zoom, right? So you email them a copy of your disclosure, you go through it, and then you tell them, you're like, hey, print it, sign it, scan it, and then email it back to me. And your client's like, what? I don't know how to do it, right? You're like, fine. What you do in that situation, you send them an email and you say, hey, listen, during our Zoom meeting, I went through my disclosure with you. Can you please respond to this email and acknowledge that I've sent you a copy of it and we went through it? And if that client can, use an email, they can respond to you saying, hey, Adam, I did get your disclosure. We did go through it. Thank you very much. So if a regulator asks you, hey, do you have proof that you've given your disclosure to your client? That email will be your proof that you've given it to your client. Okay, so very important. Last tip about this, if you go through your client files right now and you discover some of your client files are missing a disclosure, you can give them one now. It's never too late. Don't backdate it. Date it as of today. If you're going to give it today, it's better that you do it now than you never do it in the future. It's not going to be an excuse for the regulators. I'll tell you right now, but it'll make it, you can always say, hey, look, I didn't know. I know it's not an excuse, but if you look at all my files, they all have the disclosure from that day on I started using it, okay? So very important, remember that. The next two documents I wanna go through quickly is something from the part of called the approach, which is serving clients through needs-based selling. All right. So kind of like going back to the beginning of selling clients only what they need. Look, forget life insurance. Let's say you sell tires. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want tires, you're not just going to give them like a random set of tires, right? You're going to ask questions. You're going to be like, well, what do you have? Car, SUV, truck? Oh, it's a car. Okay, great. Winter's coming. Is it winter or summer? Oh, winters. Do you have rims? No. Okay. But you see what I mean, right? You're going to find out all the facts. You're going to figure out the needs. And then in the end, you can be like, all right, well, here's what I recommend. I have this company with this, brand and this one with this, right? That's your recommendation. And this is exact same when it comes to selling life insurance. When somebody comes to you and they say, hey, I want life insurance, I want, you're not just going to be like some round, okay, well, you look like you could use a term policy, right? You're going to ask all the open-ended questions. You're going to find out all the facts, figure out the needs, and then you can recommend the product, right? And again, most important, you're going to document all of it, all right? You need proof. So if anybody ever asks you, why did you do that? You always have proof in form of documentation. So how about a situation where a client comes to you and they say, hey, Adam, I just bought a house, so I need like a $1 million term for 20 years because that's how long my mortgage is, right? And that's all I'm going to tell you. All right, well, that fact finding is not going to have a lot of stuff in it. So what do you do in that situation? Glad that you asked. You use this document. Where's this? Right here. Reason why letter. All right. This is another regulatory required document. What do I mean by that? Just like a disclosure, you have to have a reason why letter in your client file. The difference is disclosure, one per client, reason why letter, one per product. Okay, so what I mean by that is this: a client comes to you, you do your stuff, you sell them a term policy. That's a reason why letter that goes with that term policy. 6 months down the road, they win lottery. They come back to you. They're like, hey, I'm rich now. I need more coverage, something more permanent. Great, let's talk about it. You do new fact finding, new needs analysis. Now you figure out this client needs some UL. Great, you sell them a UL. That's a new reason why letter, okay? Because there's a new reason for this new type of policy, all right? So now your client file for this client will have two reason why letters, one disclosure, but two reason why letters and two fact findings and two needs analysis, all right? Because it's a new product. Very important. What makes a good reason why letter? Here we go. 7 key items that a good reason why letter should have, all right? Again, I don't know why it's 7, just like a disclosure, but it is, all right? I want to bring your attention to number 4 and number 5. One second. So number 4 and number 5, because think about this situation. I'm sure a lot of you went through this as well. Client comes to you, you do your fact finding, and you figure out they need $1 million coverage. So they're like, all right, great. And then, you tell them the pricing and they say, well, I can't really afford that. I can only afford half of it. Okay, well, you know what? It's much better to have half of the coverage that you need versus nothing. So let's start with that. And then we can kind of figure out how we can, fill the gap, the rest of it, right? If you did not have a reason why letter, and God forbid something happens to that client down the road, and their family comes after you because they were expecting $1 million, but they only got a check for 500,000. They check your documentation and they say, look, even your own fact finding says, and your needs analysis says that they needed $1 million. Why did you only sell them 500? And you're like, well, because of this, right? Again, it's your word against their clients. It's not going to work in court or with the regulators. That's again where the proper documentation comes in. If you have a good reason why letter, anybody says, why did you do $1 million? I mean, why did you do only half of it? Well, I'm not glad that you asked, but since you asked, let me show you this reason why letter that is signed and dated by the client. Look, we did go through the fact finding. We did go through the needs analysis. The needs did show 1 million, but due to the financial circumstances, the client was only able to afford half of it, and we decided to go with that. But we did have a plan that during our next meeting, we're going to reevaluate everything and see if we can up the coverage, right? But you have that in the form of documentation. So if anybody ever asks, you are protected as an advisor, okay? I'm telling you, very important documentation to have. And just like a disclosure, like I said before, regulatory required document. You got to have it, okay? Where do you get it? You can get it from Evari, actually, from our website. It's called Insurance Plan Summary. There's different formats of it. Like the one we have, for example, it's a question answer format. I think it's a very good form. And I'm not just saying it because I made it, but I did. And I think it's a very good form. Use that one if you want. If it's a very complex case, for example, write it in the paragraph format, right? Because you want to include as much information as you can. Basically, I want you to think about it this way. The best reason why letter is written in a way that if it fell out of your case or whatever, if I picked it up off the ground, I don't know you, I don't know the client, I don't know anything, I wasn't there. But if I read that reason why letter, it should make sense to me, okay? I should be able to deduct, oh, okay, that's the client, that's what they talked about, and here's what they're gonna get because of these reasons, all right? That is a good reason why letter. Now, when do you give it to your client? No later than the date they receive the policy. So technically, you can show up at their door with the policy in one hand and the reason why letter in another hand. You kick the door because your both hands are busy, and then you give them the reason why, and then you give them the policy. Technically, you've given it to them before. I personally think that's a little bit late, and I always suggest to do it somewhere in the middle of in between where you're going to deliver the policy and since you had the meeting, right? Hear me out. Right now, I bet all of you could go back to any client that you spoke to a week or 2 weeks ago, and you can ask them, hey, do you remember our meeting? I'm telling you right now, you're going to hear some funny things from your clients. They're going to be like, I remember you told me I get some money or somebody gets some money, and maybe it's 10 years or something, right? Like, because it's a difficult subject to talk about in the first place. And if you know nothing about insurance, like most of the clients, it's impossible nearly to remember. But this is where the good reason why letter comes in, right? You have your meeting and they love you. You kill it. You do the perfect presentation. They decide to go with you. Next week, you send them this reason why letter that's nicely written. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, this is what you're getting. This is why you're getting it from me. Here's what we talked about. You're going to put your face back into their mind again. You're going to put the reason why they're working with you back into their forefront again. They're not going to wake up one day later and be like, wait a minute, why are we getting this? Because they're going to be like, oh, yeah, that's why we're getting it. So I just think it's better to do it a little bit sooner than right before the policy. Plus, it's a very good marketing tool for you as an advisor. Let's be real, right? A lot of clients they do silly things and they talk to their name. They just want to be better than somebody else. Than John at work, right? He's like, well, his advisor is terrible. Look at mine. Mine's giving me this stuff. What policy did you get? Oh, you don't even know. Well, I know because I got this reason why letter, right? It just makes you look as a more professional, and it gives you a good tool for your clients if they ever want to brag about you. And I guarantee you, a lot of advisors don't do this, even though it's a regulatory required document, but they don't do it. And if you do it, again, you're going to stick out as the professional. And trust me, people want to work with professionals. All right. So not only you are using the documentation that you're supposed to be using, you know what's in it and you know why you're using it. That's the most important part. Okay. Because once you understand those things, it's not going to be weird for you. All right. And what I'm talking about is like the disclosure example I used, right? Like how I went through it, right? And I want you all to kind of do the similar thing. I'm telling you, first few times, yeah, it's gonna be weird. You're gonna be like, yeah, I'm selling like bananas, but it's insurance, right? You do it 5, 10 times, you're not gonna think about it because one issue that I found with a lot of advisors over the years is when I was advisor and then later when I was a compliance officer and I was auditing advisors, one issue I found is advisors seem to think that compliance is their enemy. Okay, they think that all these rules, all these documents, they're there to make selling harder. And I don't want you, I want you all to get that out of your head because that is literally completely opposite of what the point of all these documents is. All right. The point is, and the point of compliance, it's there to protect ultimately the client, but then also you, the advisor. All right. I want you to think from now on about compliance, not as this scary guy or girl, whoever, calling you. Because believe me, I get an email back in the day from compliance. I just shut my laptop and I go away. I'm like, I'm going to look at it in like 2 days. I don't want to look. They call my phone. I don't pick it up. I'm like, I'm not touching that. That's probably something bad, right? And that was a wrong approach because I want you to think about compliance as an overprotective parent, actually. All right. It's like you standing on the roof and you're about to jump, and your mother's like, hey, don't jump. And you're like, why not? And she's like, because you're going to hurt yourself. And you're like, oh, okay. This is literally exactly the same thing with compliance. If you ever get an email from compliance or a phone call, it's like your mother standing there because you're about to do something silly and they're trying to help you. All right. Because look, you know who pays compliance? You pay compliance. The advisor pays compliance. Your sales is what brings the revenue, what pays compliance. So it would make no sense for compliance to try to stop you from sales. But what would make sense is for compliance to try to stop you from doing silly sales that might end up hurting you, the advisor, and then you won't be able to sell anymore. All right. So again, remember, don't think of compliance as someone against you. They are there with you, actually, if anything, more with you than anybody else, because it's in their best interest to make sure that you keep on selling. All right. So, anyway, back to the documentation. And I just want to tell everyone, look, if you ever do get chosen for a Vari APR or your WFG actually audit, I'm pretty sure, I guarantee you they will ask you for your client files. And in those client files, they're going to be looking for advisor disclosure, fact finding, needs analysis, a reason why letter, the next one, customer discussion document. All right. Now, what is a discussion document? It's literally a diary. All right. It's a diary that you keep for each one of your clients. Basically, anytime you talk to your client about something to do with their policy, you make a note in your little diary. Like, what is it? November 16th, I spoke to Mr. John Smith. He called me asking about some beneficiary changes or something, right? If your next door neighbor is your client and you walk your dogs every day, you're not going to put that in there unless during one of those walks, your neighbor asks some questions about the policy, all right? It's a very good document for the advisor to have because it gives you a clear insight into how often you talk to this client. When's the last time you spoke to them? Maybe it's been a little bit too long. Maybe you should reach out, right? And if you ever do get audited, when regulators look at it, it shows them a good business practice, okay? Because it tells me that you, the advisor, are keeping track of all your discussions with the clients and what you talk about. So you're on top of that client. So very important. So that's the next document they will ask you. And the last document is this delivery receipt. We all know what it is. I don't have to tell you about it. The only thing is, look, if you do get an email from Evari saying you've been chosen for an APR, send us the documents for these client files. They are looking for disclosure, fact find, and you can write it down. I am literally telling you what the regulators will ask you for: disclosure, fact finding, needs analysis, reason why letter, client discussion document, policy delivery receipt. These 6 documents are a staple of your documentation that you should have in each one of your client files. Okay? There's obviously some other ones that you might have that, depending on the policies, but these are the bread and butter of your documentation. All right. Like, so I want you all to go later and look at your files. Like I said, do it for yourself. Don't do it for me. Do it for yourself so you will know where you are if anything happens, and you will either be at peace because you're like, hey, I'm good. They can come, they can check. I have everything. Or you can be like, oh man, you know what? I am missing these things. I better get on it. All right. So take a look at your client files and make sure disclosure, fact finding, needs analysis, reason why, policy delivery, client discussion documents. Those 6 documents, make sure you have them in your client files. Now, like I said, unfortunately, the only one of them, if you don't have, is the disclosure that you can give to your client. If you didn't give them a reason why letter before, it's too late. You can do it. But what you can do is make sure you use it from now on into the future with the rest of your clients. Okay, so very important. Okay, I have a few minutes left, so I'm gonna quickly go through the rest of important documentation. So these documents were the ones for your client file. Okay. But there's another client, I call it a client of yours, that is the most important client for you, the advisor. All right. And it's you, it's the advisor. And you're like, what? Yes. If you do ever get audited, they will ask you for client file documentation, but that's just the beginning. There's certain documents that you have to have as an advisor as well, or at least know where to get them, because you might be asked for it. Let's start. Your life license. I know it seems kind of silly for some people, but this is extremely important for advisors that are licensed in multiple provinces, all right? Because a lot of time in those situations, you have your main province, your home province, where you do most of your business. And then let's say your auntie lives in BC, so you got licensed in BC just to sell her a policy. And then you forget about it. You don't renew your license. And you know what? Shortly after, you get an email from compliance saying, hey, you got unlicensed activity. What are you doing with this client in BC when you're not licensed there? And you're like, what do you mean? I am. And then you're like, oh crap, I forgot to renew my license. So very important. Make sure you stay on top of it. The easiest way to remember is this. Look, no license, no selling. No selling, no money. No money, no food. No food, angry. All right? So make sure, stay on top of your licensing. Make sure it is valid, all right? Because you need it. It's extremely important part of your business. Next document, errors and omissions, all right? Now, your E&O, it's like car insurance. We all hate it, but you know what? You are in an industry where a lot of money changes hands sometimes. And when people, when people get angry about money, they tend to do some silly things. So you want to be protected, all right? And that's what this E&O is for, is to protect you in case of mistakes, all right? So make sure you have it, make sure it's valid, and very important, if you do get licensed in another province, let your E&O provider know so they extend your coverage into that other province, because they don't know if you don't tell them. Very important, okay? Next. CE credits. Oh my gosh, this thing. This used to drive me nuts. I remember my first renewal, my manager asks me, it's in Ontario, right? So 30 credits every 2 years. He's like, hey, Adam, you ready for your renewal? I'm like, oh yeah, of course, buddy. He's like, you got your CE credits? Oh yeah, I do. And then I went home and I looked and, oh no, I didn't. I had 6. I needed 24 in the next 2 weeks, right? So I got on it. I got it, but I wish I didn't have to do it like that. So take a look at your province, what your requirements are for the CE credits. Make yourself a little plan. If you're Ontario, 30 credits every 2 years. So, do like a credit and a half every month kind of thing, and you should be all right, right? Make a little plan, try to stick to that plan so you're not kind of scrambling in the end. And very important, keep copies of your CE certificates. Again, documentation. You don't understand how many times I've audited advisors and I've asked them, hey, you just did your renewal. Did you do your CE credits? And they're always, of course, always like, oh yeah, of course I did. And I'm like, that's great. And then that's just me. I'm a mean person. Sometimes I give them a week. I let them think that they got away with it. And then after a week, I'm like, hey, you said you did your CE credits. Send me your certificates. Oh my God, you'd be surprised how many dogs eat CE certificates. It's like it's their diet or something, or how many people can't find them, or whatever happens, right? So make sure you have copies of your CE certificates, at least for the last 2 renewals. So I would say 5 years, all right? If you have it for 5 years, you'll be all right. That's Ontario time again. The last 2 documents I want to quickly mention is this: anti-money laundering and privacy policies and procedures. Now, I know a lot of advisors will say, hey, listen, I did my AML certificate. I have it right here. That's great. That means you are aware of the AML responsibilities, but you as an advisor are required legally to be able to provide anybody that asks a copy, whether digital or physical, of your anti-money and terrorist financing policies and procedures and your privacy policies and procedures. Now, I'm sure not a lot of people will ask you for AML, but privacy, I can see that happening. I you know what? Anytime anybody asks me for a copy of my ID, I ask them, what are you going to do with it, right? And you can tell them, I mean, you should be able to tell your clients, be like, well, I needed to verify who you are, and then I'm going to copy the information from it on that stuff, and then I'll get rid of it, right? But you are also required by law to be able to provide them with this document that's called Privacy Policies and Procedures, all right? Where do you get it? Reach out to your WFG compliance department or look into your advisor manual. You have a copy in there. I'm not saying go right now and look at it or whatever, but just be aware that it exists and where to get it if anybody ever asks you, okay? Very important. And actually, there's one more document, the last one, complaint handling. Look, if a client calls you and they're like, hey, Adam, you mumble when I talk to you on the phone, I can fix that complaint. I'll fix that. But if it's something regarding their policy, I will not try to fix it on my own, okay? I will reach out to my manager, my upline, my compliance department, the carrier, whose ever product is involved in this complaint, because I want you all to understand, like I told you in the beginning, look, your job as an advisor is to service your clients, okay? Stuff like this, there are people in your corner that are there to help you with stuff like this. If you ever do have a complaint, don't feel like, oh my God, I am screwed. It's me. What am I going to do? I got to study law now to no. You tell your compliance department. That's why you pay your advisor fees, all right? There's lawyers. There's way smarter compliance people than me sitting in your corner, and their job is to protect you, okay? I've worked on client complaints, and I'll tell you right now, yes, we try to be impartial, obviously, within the confines of the law, but in the end, my goal was always to protect the advisor and protect the company, all right? Obviously, I'm not gonna screw the client over, but again, always in your back, all right? We're here for you. You're not alone. So having said that, I just want to mention a couple last things when it comes to compliance. Look, everyone, it might seem a little bit odd in the beginning, doing these compliance regulatory documents or even talking about it. It might seem odd, right? But that's because anything that you make odd, it will appear odd to your clients as well. Picture this. Picture your favorite athlete, right? Like I always used to use the LeBron because he's the man, right? Like if you ever watch him play, The man is unstoppable, and it always looks the same. He takes a shot, it goes in, it looks the same. But you know what? He practiced that shot in the gym day in and day out. He did it 1,000 times. And same thing for your business, all right? Yeah, in the beginning, using a disclosure might feel kind of weird, but you do it 5 times, 10 times, it's not going to be weird. It's not going to be like, oh, hold on, I got to do compliance. I got to do this form. No, no, no. It's not extra. It's part of your business. Okay. If anything, to you, extra would be like not doing a disclosure because that's kind of weird. No, from now on, I want you all to like put it as part of your business and use it as part of your business because it is. I will use my last analogy that I use. It always, oh my God, Daniel will probably laugh. Anyway, so look, imagine you're selling as pizza, all right? Mwah, everybody loves pizza. Delicious, yummy pizza. You give your client a pizza slice. You're like, hey, I made this for you. Eat it. And then you're like, oh, wait, I forgot. There's some compliance involved. What is compliance in my story? It's broccoli. Why is it broccoli? Because nobody likes broccoli. We all know it's good for you, but nobody likes it, right? So you give them the nice pizza and then you're like, wait. And you take some broccoli out of your pocket and you throw it on the ground. And you're like, here's some broccoli too for you, right? That's how people do their business right now. That's how advisors do. They do that extra, like make it weird, right? Imagine that instead of doing that, you take the broccoli originally, you put it on the pot, you saute, maybe a little bit of garlic, a little bit of onion, some salt, pepper, some cayenne, yum, 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 yummy, right? Then you put that on your pizza and then you give it to your client and you're like, hey, here's my business, here's my pizza. And you know what? It's also good for you because it's got broccoli, but you can't even taste it. You can't even tell that it's there. And it's the same thing with compliance. If you make it weird, it's going to be weird. But if you don't, if you make it part of your business, it's going to be part of your business. It's not going to look weird. And you're going to look so much better than somebody else that is not doing it. Because the best way to look at it is this. Look, would you want somebody to treat the way you treat your clients, but if it was your mother instead, right? So treat every single one of your clients how you would want your mother, if you love your mother, that is, how you would want your mother to be treated as well, right? You want to explain everything. You don't want to leave any doubt in those people's minds, and you want to give them adequate documentation, and you want to have documentation for yourself as well. So in your mind, you know that you are protected. Okay. And sorry, I could go on. I see I'm on time. I can go on about this. I don't know why compliance is such a cheesy thing, but I feel so passionate about it. I want you guys all to like stay in this industry for as long as possible, make millions of dollars, drive nice cars, and have billions of clients. All right. But in order for you to do that, you gotta make sure that you do all the regulatory stuff, because you can be the best salesperson and sell. Like I could sell to people, but then somebody else better will show up. And if you didn't sell them the right thing, and if you didn't explain everything, you don't have your documentation, then that sale is just going to be gone like that, right? So not only you got to be a good salesperson, but you got to make sure that you sell the right things, and you got to make sure you have all the documentation to support that you sold the right thing. All right? Okay, Daniel, I'm done. I promise. Is there any questions?
Well, you never cease to amaze me on all your analogies, man. If you can help me figure out how to get my kids to eat broccoli on their pizza, that'd be very helpful for me. But a couple of things here, actually. You do already have a fan in the group, because Helene made a comment about how, she appreciates the fact that you, as a compliance individual, that you've also been in the advisor's shoes. So I think she appreciates that. We have Braxton here who has a really good question. I guess you're the right person to ask it, because he's asking, can you just sort of help clarify the first 2 questions on the Avari reason why letter? So, by the way, folks, I just want to say, I know some of you have to go. It's past a little bit past 8:00, and I certainly understand that some of you have to go. And if you do leave, you're good. You will get your CE credit. Okay. So I don't want people to think that they're forced to stay here past 8:00. That was our commitment to you. So can you sort of expand on that? The first 2 questions of the page 2. The first 2 questions of the Avari reason why letter, and I can easily pull it up and share my screen if you want me to do that. Mind.
Please do.
Yeah, okay. So let me go ahead. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we're
Okay, good.
Yeah,
So let me go to
just
page 2. And
insurance.
I'm assuming this is what we're talking about.
That's correct. Yep. Mhm.
So here's the thing, right? When it comes to the reason why letter, like I know one of them, for example, is like also discretionary fee choices. So if any of these questions, they don't directly apply to the product that you're selling, don't worry about filling those out. But this insurance cost paid or any additional costs required. Oh man, that's been so long since I've made this for. I would imagine that is the insurance cost. I would imagine that is the how much the insurance is. Don't quote. You know what? Let me look into my note. I gotta find my notes. Why did I choose these questions in there? So if you don't mind, I'm gonna find that out. I'll let Daniel know so he can reach out to you. I don't want to tell you the wrong thing again. Like,
no, it's all good, and I'll make a note of Braxton's name, and we'll make sure we're Braxton Hire. Okay, so we'll make sure we get back to you, Braxton. And then, of course, interestingly enough, one person said, let me see if I can find it. You know, some clients think too many documents to sign while doing the transaction, disclosures, F&A, reason why. You know, how do you handle this, given the fact that we have all these documents that we have to ask the client to sign? I have my own comments that I can certainly share, but go ahead, Adam. What's your thought on this?
yeah. Again, look, like I said in the beginning, if you make them seem like they are extra documents, like it's a big chore for you to get that out and be like, oh, I'm sorry, it's another document you have to sign, it's a compliance thing, then your clients are gonna reciprocate, like they're gonna have the same energy. They're gonna be like, oh, okay, like why, oh my God, like this and that. Again, don't feel the need like you have to explain yourself to your client. I mean, you kind of do, but like the way you want to position it is in this, be like, hey, look, all these documents, they're there for you, Mr. and Mrs. Client. They're there to protect you, to make sure that you know exactly who it is that you work, like disclosure, for example, you know who you're working with. The reason why letter document, it is so you can say that I clearly explain to you what it is that you're buying and why, right? So I kind of see where you're going, you know, like, yeah, it might seem like it's you know, there's a lot of documentation, but again, it's there to protect everyone in the industry. And because a lot of people got kind of burnt, I don't want to say that word, you know, they got hurt, especially when COVID started. A lot of people joined the industry, right? Because they just wrote the test and they started selling policies, and they started selling wrong policies to clients. And that's where the regulators kind of got like, hey, what's going on here? So they started looking extremely hard into the documentation. So for the advisor, for you, like I'm saying, look, if you position it like it's an extra document, that's how the client is going to perceive it. But if you position it as that's, you know what do you mean extra? Like, that's literally how it is, how everyone should be doing it. I'm not doing, when I ask you to sign these documents, I'm not asking you to do anything extra. This is literally what every single advisor should be doing. I am just doing my job correctly. And if you were working with other advisors that didn't do it, they were not good advisors. All right. So that's the best approach that I can give you. I don't know, Daniel, if you mentioned you had your own opinion on this.
Well, yeah, I think that's, you know, my own little spin is this, is that, you know, it's turn it to your advantage. Some of the most successful advisors that I know use compliance as a way to set themselves apart from everybody else in the industry. They don't talk about all this stuff at the end of the process. Oh, by the way, Kusha, you know, this is great. And, you know, I've explained everything and all. We have to get all this compliance stuff out of the way. I would probably use it as a way to introduce myself. And I'd say, you know what, Kusha, you know, we're here because, you know, we want to take some time to share with you the work that I do, how I can help you. And at the same time, I want to explain to you what are some of my obligations through all this, because I want you to feel comfortable doing business with me. So I would position all this stuff at the very beginning. and use it to my advantage. Use compliance as a selling opportunity. That's my response. Yeah.
Like think of that pizza and the broccoli, right? It's not extra. It's not something extra. It's
Part of it.
part of your selling. It's literally, it's like saying, hey, I bought a car and guess what? It came with brakes. No, that's what it comes with, right? That is literally part of your business as an advisor. That those documents, they are part of your business. They're not something extra, like they are there. Right? I don't know how else to say it. Like they are part of your business, right? Like you wake up, you put your pants on, you didn't do something extra. No, that's how you do your morning routine, and that's how you sell. You need these documents because that's just a part of the business, right? So, and again, like Daniel said, don't put it in the end. Don't make it weird, and it's not gonna be weird, right? You start with the disclosure, go through it, and I'm telling you, if you do it like that, your client's gonna be like, whoa, like if they worked with other advisors and they didn't do it right away, they're gonna be like, man, this person, like, that's a professional, like I ask questions and they know. So that's the best, I guess, advice I can give when it comes to those forms.
Fantastic. And the last question, and then we'll wrap it up, is somebody did ask, Amal asked, where can we find the Reason Why letter? Very easy, avari.ca. If you want to mark this down, avari.ca for my business section, and you're going to find a section called Practice Management. Practice Management, and you're going to find the Reason Why letter in there, amongst other tools, by the way, because there are other great tools that we've developed for you. All right.
And you can look at it in your advisor manual, the WG. Like I know it has a couple different templates for Reason Why letter in there as well, so you can look at it in there as well. Or if you ever feel like checking out CLHI website, go clhi.ca and go to the document section, and then they're all there. Actually, they're all listed, and they have a couple neat documents that you can read, and they'll actually tell you some other tips as well, how to position those documents.
Fantastic. All right, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thank you once again for taking some time out of your busy schedule, your family schedule as well, on this Thursday evening. And hey, I love having Adam in here. Every time he comes in here, he brings a different spin. Today it's about pizza and broccoli. I'm anxious to find out what the next one will be in the next webinar. We have an opportunity to bring Adam in at least once every 3 months. So he's just such an incredible resource for us, always available, and we so appreciate it, folks. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday evening. Bring your teammates in to our following. So tell them how good the Avari sessions are. Come on, get them in. All right. And, hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.